Okay, welcome, Michał, again.
Yeah,
Um,
hi, once again, nice to be here.
I could say you are, you can call yourself an abstract games designer, right?
Uh, yeah,
Or,
I mean, I've
or you
designed
wanna,
games, but
you have designed a few games. Okay, well, it's not your first job, let's say, right? You don't make it for a you make it do it for fun, right?
right.
For the pleasure.
I actually earned like 50 euros
Ah,
from it because
well,
of
from
yeah, but
Tumbleweed, or
right. We did like a limited edition pen and paper Tumbleweed release with Studio Supernova, and they paid me like 50
true.
euros.
Okay,
But
that's a start.
yeah, but I've also spent like $500 on the BGA implementation. So like I'm
Oh,
deep in the
okay.
red.
So
Definitely
so
not yeah. So actually the Christian Freeling, one of the great ones, used to say that it's very easy to make a small fortune out of abstract games. That all you have to do is start with a big fortune. And I'm
absolutely,
following
yeah, yeah.
that pattern for now.
It's not a profitable business, I would say, so far. But well, if Tumbleweed becomes more and more famous, who knows? Um, you're thinking about a commercialization, right? Sorry if I
Well,
jump straight into. I know we sort of decided order of things, the topics to talk about, but now you'll see that we're just messing everything around
no,
and.
obviously, like those things happen. It's fine.
But,
Yeah. Uh, so, as I said, the Studio Supernova edition was very small, so it was only 1,000 copies, and it was pen and paper, and it was exclusively in Italian,
yeah.
which I'm extremely grateful to all the people who gave us this opportunity. But yeah, as you can possibly imagine, we have some appetite for more.
No, of course.
But Tumbleweed has proven very hard to publish just because it requires a lot of materials to be done right. Like even
Hmm.
the smaller size 6 board, perfectly playable, but maybe not as deep as the others, uh, requires a few dozen dice or stacks on each side.
So using dice is the best solution you found so far.
Right, because it was actually, I think, Russ on Board Game Geek who pointed out that any stack in Tumbleweed can have up to 6 pieces in it.
Yeah,
So
makes
you can
sense.
just use dice with the number of pips representing the size of the stack. But still, that's a lot of dice. So we're searching for a publisher, and
What
I,
about?
I think
Oh, sorry, go
yeah,
on.
sorry. Yeah, so I think that Tumbleweed has kind of proven itself in the online community enough to be published, but uh, it's an uphill battle. So if there are any board game publishers in the audience, like do hit me up. And yeah, I actually think that Tumbleweed is a game that would probably be impossible to make even 20 years ago, unless some extremely rich guy had too much spare time on his hands and decided to self-publish at a great cost. And yeah, Tumbleweed is a game that feels very classic, I think, very Go-like. Like it's not a Go variant, but some people have made the comparison, and I can see why. Uh,
You need a similar amount, similar number of pieces,
yeah, even if,
first of
if
all.
nothing else, right? Yeah, but despite its kind of classic feel, I think that Tumbleweed is one of those games that are children of the digital era. Just because the number of pieces required is prohibitively large, and it kind of needed to prove itself first on the online stage before it can even be given a chance.
And this is actually like the theme that we wanted to explore today, that you actually proposed. I really thank you for that. The theme is how computer and like the digital era has changed the way we would play some games, and it makes much easier to play some games that probably wouldn't be known to anyone because they would be too costly to produce or cumbersome to play, and so in this case, in this scenario, Tumbleweed has been an example. Well, there are many others. We'll talk about it now. But we talked about like Tumbleweed last time with Alec, so we're probably not gonna through like the whole rules and everything. But
Right, of course. By the way, it was a really great episode, and I actually wanted to thank you here because it kinda rekindled my love for my own game, just seeing you to discuss it and have a good time. And I know for a fact that a few players have picked it up just from your stream. So
okay, good.
yeah, you're doing some great work here. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I do it because I mean, I usually do it for games I like. Uh, and second, I do it because I want to learn more. Because I'm usually very selective with the games I play. Like I mainly focus on Hive and a few others. But once I pick a game, I really get into it. And so yeah, I want to know more and the story behind it, and you guys know loads of stuff about abstract games in general. So this is it's just selfish. I want to learn more, you know. And at the same time, I help you popularize it, I think. So can I ask you something? Well, and we mentioning we so you mentioned that Tumbleweed is hard to commercialize, but you mentioned the cost, but I'm not sure if it is just the cost itself. So it was too pricey to produce, or is more the way to play it, like physically, that is a problem, or
Right.
both, or what
Yeah.
solution you have explored? I know the dice seems, you said, seems the best solution, but maybe there are other solution, or just
Yeah. So people have played Tumbleweed physically because there are a few really high quality boards in existence. There is a board that was made for our champion, Anton Christensen, by his brother, and it uses stacks. Just, you have pieces and you stack them one on top of the other. Then, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, but there is this guy whose BGG username is Monkey Turtle Prime, and
okay.
he's actually making some 3D printed tumbleweed boards that
Ah,
use
okay.
dice. And then the third way, which is also kind of interesting, was pioneered by Nick Conoan, a very good tumbleweed player, especially in the early days. And he's making a custom board for himself. It's actually an awesome project because the board is made of metal and he's welding it from scratch.
Okay.
Where he's using like uniform cylinders of various heights, and the cylinders have numbers on top. So it's
What?
kind of a halfway point between dice and stacked pieces. And of course, this is the approach that requires probably the most material, but he's actually used like very extensive statistics from the game to kind of estimate what kinds of stacks will be needed. And any of those approaches we found to be perfectly playable on on the physical board. And if you have any experience with Tumbleweed, then probably reading legal moves and stuff won't really be a big issue. But definitely it's not just the production cost, because you have very costly games out there. But it's also the fact that Tumbleweed obviously doesn't really have a theme, and it's easier to market, probably.
So it's the intrinsic problem of abstract games.
Right, obviously, and it's probably cool, like much easier to market a cool game about bugs, like hopping around and chasing each other, than it is
Sort of.
about stacks.
I think Nick Bentley discussed this a few times when he wanted to commercialize Circle of Life or Blooms, right? Yeah, I mean, the abstract games normally suffer
Right.
of this
I
in
mean,
comparison with the other games.
uh, Nick is kind of a hopeless pessimist, and I don't know if it is his own experience uh, or some other factors, but like actually he has this very scientific approach to board games where he's trying to calculate various heuristics, and
Um,
then his approach. If his approach to board games can be compared to any science, then it would be thermodynamics, because like thermodynamics, is an extremely pessimistic science that
the
given enough
entropy
time, we will all
will kill us
die.
all. I get
Yeah.
it. I get it.
So I mean, don't get me wrong, Nick is a great guy, and I'm actually grateful for his contributions. But probably any time he says that something is like impossible for abstracts to do, should be taken with a bit, a grain of salt. Just because like he was talking the other day about like how the death of Tuck as a game is a foregone conclusion, and then one of
It's
the guys who is actually like really involved in the Tuck community barged into the thread and said like, "Oh no, actually we're doing great, thank you." Like here are the statistics, and we're probably better than ever. So. Uh, no,
speaking of
once
which,
again,
there is someone in the chat who is
right.
actually saying that thanks to Discord and other social media, they managed to grow their community.
Okay, hi Simon.
Hello.
Yeah, so
Um, by the way,
nothing but love for Nick Bentley, but
but I
yeah,
think
the
he
life isn't
also.
always as grim as he probably says.
Well, I think okay. One point is that he has this very logical, scientific approach to everything, but at the same time, I think he also works in a board game company, right? So it
Right,
probably
he
has.
recently became a president of a design studio.
So he probably has and more insight into marketing dynamics. Like he has a bit more feeling about. Like from a commercial point of view, something can be successful or not. Maybe.
Right, I guess, but like it's fortunately never a science, and you can have awesome games that struggle, and you can have maybe subpar games that. For instance, Abalone. I don't have strong feelings about the game one way or the other. Like it's cool. Maybe it has some issues with turtling, I've heard. But it has
Like
had
drawish
some.
position, you mean?
Right. And although
Yeah.
actually the community has come up with various alternative openings to kind of eliminate it,
Yeah, that's
like
what is
different
used
setups.
in tournaments for the past 10 years, I think.
Yeah, and in that regard, Abalone is like a huge source of inspiration for me. That the community saw a problem with the game and was just able to kind of organically fix it, because it's kind of the process by which the great abstract of the past were made, like various chess variants.
Yeah.
So maybe Abalone is at the beginning of a beautiful journey. But what I actually wanted to say is that it is a game that has had some inexplicable financial success and probably can be used as a counter example in every overly pessimistic discussion of abstracts.
I see. Yeah, actually, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know exactly why. I think it's particularly popular in France, where it was born. Not sure if all over the world is very popular, but uh, the world champion Vincent Frochot, I think, has spent a lot of time. He built a site himself, a website himself to play. He has tried to popularize in any different, like any possible way, different events. He has been played the Mind Sports Olympiad for 20 years. So yeah, I'm not sure how it all started, but yeah, I agree. It's hard to predict this sort of things.
Right.
Uh, okay. Should we talk more about how, like, apart from Tumbleweed, right? The theme was how the computer help to play some games that we will never be able to play otherwise. And actually, you mentioned to me some example that come from your design, but also from Christian Freeling work, right?
Right. Yeah, because when you're playing physically, you obviously have some constraints, and one thing is that obviously you're limited by the materials you have, and a game that requires 100 pieces might be less attractive than a game that requires like five.
Mm-hmm.
Another constraint is that obviously even if you have an acceptable number of pieces, then games with minimal setup are typically preferable to games that have very complex setup. And then
Mm-hmm.
the other thing is that if you have any games that feature automatic actions, like a single decision by the player triggers like 20 random effects,
Mm-hmm.
then this is also extremely hard to do physically over the board. And for instance, my first game, okay, I've been making games since I was 3, but my first game that I don't feel ashamed to talk about, which was actually
Okay.
Slyde.
Okay.
Uh, it
I can
had
show it as well
okay,
to
great.
people.
Yeah, so anyway, Slyde had I think
You
the
can play
smallest
it on
board was
Mind
8
Sports.
by 8. Right. And then in the initial setup, all the pieces were on the board in this kind of checkerboard pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And because the game itself is finite and not that long, then setting it up would kind of take longer than playing in some instances if you're a blitz player like myself. And never would have been done probably in the pre-computer era. But it's a good game, and I think so. It was actually able to inspire some other designers to do
Mm.
various more or less original games of their own.
So let's explain briefly why the setup is complicated. So here you see the board. It looks empty, but this is because instead of having pieces, we basically use the tiles of the board as pieces, sort of, right? So
Right.
a move is made of a swapping or sliding. I don't know if you intend that, by swapping two adjacent tiles. Uh, let's say we play white and we swap with one of the orthogonally adjacent one. And then we put a sign, something to say that that tile cannot be moved anymore, right?
Right.
You fix that tile there. And so physically you would need another sort of I don't know, something to put on top, another checker to put on top to say that piece cannot be moved anymore.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of materials required, and if you want to set the board up, then you better grab yourself a chair.
I mean, probably 8 by 8 is not too bad, right? It's 64 pieces in total.
Right, but like actually 8 by 8 was
It's too short.
it was the absolute smallest size that we considered, and actually we later found that odd-sized boards, so like 9 by 9, are probably more balanced.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, as you can see, this is a game that would be utterly impractical, probably to play in person. You would have to be extremely dedicated. And obviously, on a computer, when the board is nicely set up for you and the pieces will never run out because they are just, some abstract images, no big deal. So, kind of similar to Tumbleweed. And another great example would be Christian Freeling's game called Symple.
I have it here as well.
And, right. So
This probably even more. I will feel even more daunted by it. So go on, explain how it works.
right. So the rules of Symple are simple. Like Christian is no liar. Basically, the rules are that you on each turn you can either place a new piece, thus starting a new group, or you can grow every group that you have and that isn't completely blocked.
So
And
you are forced to grow all the groups, right? You cannot
right,
choose.
all the groups you can't pass.
By in the direction
And
you want.
right, and then at the end of the game, your score is the number of the pieces you own minus some fixed penalty for each group you own. And if the penalty is an even number, then the game is drawless.
Okay.
And this penalty number, actually, Christian doesn't specify one.
Here I see by default 6, but
Yeah, by default it's 6, but it can be set by agreement by the players, which makes Symple an extremely flexible game. Because if you set the value to 0, then it becomes basically a unification game. No, sorry. If you set it to 0, obviously, then it becomes a territorial game, because just the number of pieces that you have counts. But the more you increase the penalty number, the more it trends towards being a connection game, where actually having less groups is fine.
so you
And
get points for. Sorry, can you repeat? You get points for the biggest group, or for the.
no, you gain a point for any piece that you have on the board.
Okay.
And you
Minus.
lose as set number of points for every group, and it kind of doesn't matter if the group is like a 1 stone or a 20 stone.
Okay. But can you grow merging groups, or is not
Yeah,
allowed?
and there was some special edge case for when you merge groups, but I think it's that if you use a single stone to merge the groups, then you can't merge like if a single stone grows 2 groups at once, then you can't place another stone growing the same groups, which makes sense.
Okay.
Like that, but anyway, it's possible to merge groups, and actually what you want to do is first to start creating a lot of small groups, then you want to start growing them, and then you want to start connecting them, so that first you gain a lot of pieces just by growing your many smaller groups, and then you try to reduce the group tax, the group penalty, by connecting them. And it's an awesome game. Actually, Eric Silverman, Dr. Silverman, is a huge champion of Symple. And the thing about Symple is that even on a smaller board, you have to keep track of which groups were already grown each turn.
Yeah.
And I guess there are some practical ways around it, but it's kind of hard to follow without some special signifiers.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
the awesome thing that Silverman was actually able to found is that because of this move protocol, Symple can actually be played on virtually any board size. And obviously the number of actions per turn will increase, but the number of turns will remain relatively manageable. So even if you play on something idiotic like 38 by 38,
Okay.
a game of Symple will be relatively fast. And obviously you won't be playing any 38 by 38 games physically. Like people don't
Yeah.
have this kind of resources on
This
their
this
budget
fetish.
basis.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I
So,
think we didn't mention what the goal of Slyde was, though. I think.
oh, right. Sorry. So, Slyde
Co-
mirrors the goal of Ketchup. Ketchup is a game by the aforementioned Nick Bentley. Uh, and this goal is to produce the biggest group of your pieces. And if the score is tied, then you compare the
The
second
second
biggest
best.
groups and so on until uh, until you run out of groups or until someone is better. Right. And I think that both Symple and Tumbleweed and Slyde are excellent examples of games that probably would never enjoy any degree of success before the computers, but you know it, I think that it cannot be said that they are just computer games, because there is something very distinctly abstract and very distinctly board gamey about them.
It's actually like the boundary between a board game and a computer game. It becomes very subtle, right? Like, what is
Right,
a
of
computer
course,
game?
but I'm extremely optimistic for the future because of course, the depth of even normal abstract, so to speak, is probably hard to deplete. And actually, I was able to create some original games that would be considered, proper and perfectly playable abstracts. But now that we have computers to play, and now that we have some awesome general playing services like IGGC and of course Ludai and Board Game Arena, we can really push the boundaries of the genre, and we can create all sorts of crazy games that will be probably just as deep and just as pure, whatever the hell that means, as the great abstracts of the past. But they will do stuff that was impossible before. And I actually consider myself a bit of a pioneer in this regard because, obviously, I'm not the first person to create such games. I think that among serious abstract designers, this distinction probably goes to Christian. No big surprise, like the guy's a genius. Like, name a thing and he probably did it.
Uh,
But
there's actually that problem as well now, right? That you have to find an original idea, a novel idea. It's not easy, right? Like
Right, but my
all
point
sort of
is exactly that
mechanics.
with the advent of computer enhanced board games, suddenly a lot of unclaimed territory has become feasible because obviously you probably will not be able to discover any new islands and colonize them in the modern world.
Mm.
But now that we have spacefaring technology, maybe you can become the first guy on Mars.
Okay, I like
And
this metaphor, this
right,
analogy. And so these games are the Mars of the exploration, human exploration.
right, and Tumbleweed, maybe not quite moon landing, but like Sputnik 1, perhaps.
Okay, okay, okay.
It was something, I think.
Can I ask you
Uh,
something else? Because I think related to this, does this mean we have to like make boards bigger and games longer to actually create a deep game? Because I wonder the most of this happen because some games are playable or fun to play, not trivial on on big boards, right?
right.
If it was a good game on a 6x6 board, probably we wouldn't need a computer, I suppose. Like if
Right.
Tumbleweed was a so. I mean, this is more philosophical game
Right.
design
I,
problem.
I actually I actually used to be a huge sucker for big boards. And actually, the first time we played Tumbleweed with Alec, I think it was on 11 by 11, just because the 11 size 11 hex is like the biggest hexagonal board that's smaller than the Goban.
Okay.
And I didn't want to go higher than the Goban, but I wanted to go as high as possible before that. Um,
It feels pretty big, 11, right?
right, obviously. And nowadays people are playing Tumbleweed mostly on size 6. And it's perfectly playable, and actually two great theory books have been written. I actually wanted to shout them out. There's one book on like tactical problems and one book on opening theory, and they can both be found on Board Game Geek. And
And they're based on X6 size,
they are
right?
based on Hex 6, and actually, I guess maybe you can throw them in the description
Mm-hmm.
when it
Yeah,
goes on YouTube.
yeah, sure.
Uh, right.
I think I did already. Well, but anyway.
Anyway, I really appreciate board games that work on uh,
Smaller
on smaller
size.
boards.
Mm.
And one great example can, for instance, be a very modern game by Mark Steer called Dodo.
Ah,
Dodo is
okay.
played on like Hex 4 or Hex 5, and it's it's one of those games that is kind of just poetic in how simple it is, and
Mm-hmm.
it has a lot of detractors, but that think that, oh no, it can't possibly be non-trivial. But I've played it a lot, and for a while I've been actually in like top 10 strongest Dodo players, and I feel comfortable saying that it's good. Uh,
Okay.
so
I'm
it's
probably one of those that didn't understand that game. No, no offense taken for Mark
no,
Steer.
it's
Just I still haven't. I don't know.
it
I'm
is
not
a
hooked.
game of very opaque and very
I think
uniform movement. Maybe good for
I think
draws players. A
you're lagging.
surprising territorial aspect to it.
Okay.
Oh, am I?
I think yeah, your audio was a bit. I'm not sure if it's my fault or your fault, but okay, now it seems fine.
Okay. Uh, well, I wasn't moving for a moment there, so I
Okay.
guess you wouldn't know. Yeah, but sorry, to your point. So the modern trend, this is kind of the downside of the computer era. is that people really want instant gratification, and they want their games to be like, very short, and preferably they want to be able to play them without reading the rules.
No,
So
okay, I understand that. But
my personal aesthetic preference is for bigger boards. And actually, I like Tumbleweed on size 6, but it becomes really beautiful and really poetic once you give it the space to grow. And at size 10, Tumbleweed game is like a really another kind of experience. We should play sometime. But
I think especially Tumbleweed, though, on a too big board, it becomes really hard to visualize, right?
yeah, and that's where computers come in, because in the beginner mode in board game arena, you can visualize the spheres of influence. Yeah, so to your original question, I think that kind of the compromise that has to be made is what is the smallest board on which the game
Works.
feels like itself. Not really works. It's another like play a game on a really big board and see what is beautiful about it. And then kind of scale it down and see at which point this beauty and these processes start to break down. And it isn't necessarily the same point at which the game becomes trivial, but
just when it feels less interesting.
Yeah, although this is probably more true of games that feature like, long lines of sight and long actions and very strategic decisions. And then, so like Tumbleweed, for instance. And then there are games that are very local and very tactical and very sharp. And then the process becomes kind of the opposite. Like, find the inherent sharpness of the game, and then see how far you can scale it up before like each single move starts to feel insignificant. So a good example of such a game would be, I guess, Slyde, where you only swap a single pair of pieces. And once you start playing on a board that is like 13 by 13, then swapping a pair somewhere along the corner really feels underwhelming. So
Go itself is pretty local, right? In principle, but it's still played on 19 by 19 board. But there might be cultural effects there.
I mean,
if it was designed nowadays, maybe we would play it on a smaller board.
Oh yeah, if I were designing Go, then first of all, good for me.
well, you probably have to wait a few 100 years though to get enough.
Right. Yeah, but second of all, I think that I would probably have stopped at like maybe 13 by 13 at most. So whoever decided to go further, like whatever crazy Japanese fisherman 4,000 years ago decided, like, you know what, 19 by 19, I don't care.
I have time. I've got enough spare time.
More power to you, my man. Like.
Okay, well, that was just an example.
Yeah, Go is a pretty nasty counterexample to like anything I say today, I guess. But
it's probably the only one. So, and it's very peculiar one.
It's a phenomenon that's probably hard to repeat.
Sure.
Impossible even, maybe.
Let's talk about it again in a few hundred of years, and let's see.
Right.
Where Tumbleweed has gone and.
Like on like 15 by 15 hexagon.
Yeah, well, maybe. Who knows? Should we move to another game? Because I was particularly, honestly, I didn't know about your game Inkblots, and and it really struck me because, mainly because of the beauty of how it evolves on the board. I don't know if like the gameplay, like I still don't know how it works, if that's fascinating, but surely the way it evolves, it's very fascinating.
Right.
And
So I have like almost everyone on the board game geek abstract subforum. Like I have a lot of game concepts that I kind of abandoned.
uh-huh.
And Inkblots, Inkblots, it's kind of out there. Like it's a game that exists. It's obviously playable on Ludai.
I'm showing it
And
right now
oh, cool.
on the
Uh, right, but I didn't go anywhere really with it. And
So let's explain briefly how it works.
fortunately, like
Um,
work
I think
is,
was lagging for a
can you hear
second,
me?
but now yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the way it works is that on each turn you get to place a single piece, and then all the groups that you have automatically grow. So obviously the inspiration for this game was Symple, but the game is kind of reverse Symple in that there you can either place a single piece or grow all the groups, and
Mm-hmm.
here you place a single piece and then all your groups grow anyway. And what's cool and what's new is that they grow in all directions at once.
Mm-hmm. So it just
And the
spreads
goal,
like an ink blot.
right, hence the name. And yeah, it's a perfect example of this computer era abstract because it basically works like cellular automation. I don't know if you're aware of, Game of Life and stuff like this, but
Yeah,
it was a huge
yeah.
source of inspiration here. Uh,
So if people are looking here, are watching this beautiful patterns created, it feels a bit like uh, an artwork made with a computer, like a automatic artwork.
oh yeah,
Uh,
it's probably the most aesthetically pleasing of all my designs. Uh, Not many Inkblots player these days, gotta say. Uh, Probably the number would be zero. But
but the
I think the idea
strategy,
has some merit.
the strategic ideas feel probably not very clear. Like, and it's hard to calculate. I think it's hard to go more than one move ahead with all this
Well,
growing.
here's the thing that this is a discussion that actually first came about when I created a game called Tore. And it was like a very early predecessor of Tumbleweed, and it was honestly kind of crap. Hence, we have Tumbleweed today. Am
Okay.
I allowed to say crap on Twitch?
I think you
I
can
don't know the
say
rules.
even
Okay,
worse than that. And
okay,
anyway,
great.
don't worry.
Yeah, but
The,
anyway, I think that all those games that have limited visibility or that have maybe very complex actions uh, can kind of open the doors to some other mental faculties, such as intuition.
Mhm.
Because for Inkblots, it's extremely hard to play if you're a robot. I'm gonna say this, but if you're human, then
It's
actually
impossible.
visualizing the game in play, I think is not that hard
Okay.
because you just kind of try to visualize each group as an expanding circle, and then you
Mm.
just kind of try to pinpoint a point at which this sphere of influence converge in such a way that placing a new expanding circle would grab the most space for yourself. So, like,
Yeah.
there aren't very, very rigoristic. look-aheads, but I think that this kind of not very strict, very intuitive and very geometric way of playing Inkblots can probably produce good results, even despite the game's large branching factor. And probably there will be some points at which you miscalculated, and by placing the triangle there instead of two spaces to the left, you've doomed the game.
I say
But
intuition will be more important.
right, but I think that especially on the bigger boards where your opponents won't be calculating either, like these broad strokes kind of strategic geometric approach should work perfectly. And this is probably another cool thing about computer board games, that in many computer games you don't really do very rigoristic look-aheads. Like you aren't really searching, the game tree of Fortnite or whatever. I mean, it's probably possible just because, the ping goes in quantified packages. So I guess formally there is such a thing as a game tree of Fortnite. But no one is doing that, because you kind of have this, higher level intuitive heuristics. And obviously look-aheads are great and are the basis of abstract thinking, but I think that games that kind of make it impossible for you to look ahead and force you to use your abstract strategic reasoning are the ones that are really awesome. And I think that especially all the great Eastern games, so like Go, but for instance also Shogi with its enormous branching factor, kind of are like this. Unless you're, very clearly winning, or you happen just by chance to know some position from the book, then you need basically divine inspiration rather than this
sure.
very mathematical skill.
It has its charm, right? Just using intuition rather than just basing on yourself, your moves on calculations, and that's it. I agree.
Right, and I especially champion this style of games because honestly, I'm an extremely impatient player, and I prefer to just blitz out my moves. So
you don't
if there is
calculate
a game
very
where,
far.
right, if there is a game where my opponent won't be calculating either, and we're kind of, both battling to see whose intuition is better, then my chances of winning are probably much,
I see.
much stronger. Right.
Okay. I want to ask you a question about Inkblots. I was forgetting. No, basically, something that is not very common is this trigonal or triangular board. I don't know how you call it. Well, it's an hexagonal board, but played with triangles.
With a triangular grid.
Triangular grid, okay.
Right.
And there is a reason why it's been chosen. Like,
sorry, like this is slightly uncomfortable just because usually my design process is, this one big stream of consciousness, and I kind of find it hard to explain myself. But I guess the reason we used it was to limit the mobility.
Yeah, because
when you have, for instance, and by limiting the, connectivity, of course, and by limiting the connectivity, you increase the time the game can be played on a similar sized board. Just because if you, for instance, use the square board with the ortho-diagonal connections, so like the chess king,
square board.
Then on the first move, you gain 8 pieces for each group. And then it grows, like I don't remember you have the table up. Great.
But I think, only orthogonally, so for four sides of the square,
yeah,
right?
but
While for the triangular grid, only 3.
Right. So
actually,
here
yeah,
the point still stands that for a triangular grid,
it's lower.
uh,
The growth is lower.
yes, a group, when you have two boards basically with equal equal number of cells each, then the board with worse connectivity will provide a longer Inkblots game. Just because the same number of groups will take a longer time to reach
To
the
grow.
entire board.
Yeah,
So the reasoning was that
25% longer.
right, which is awesome. Because the games can be short, but if they are too short, then maybe they will become solvable, or basically, what's the point of even starting the program if it's over in 3 moves?
But I think there's also an argument in the grid itself, right? Like, because one square can grow in 4 directions, and it can interlock with other 4 diagonal square. And in the triangular grid, you grow in 3 directions, and you interlock with actually 4, 6. So like maybe there is more chance to create a different meshes, different
All right,
patterns.
yeah. I mean, it wasn't really my reasoning, but definitely it's a factor that makes the game interesting.
Another thing that I want to shortly talk about is you said Inkblot was inspired by Game of Life. Probably not everyone knows what Game of Life is. So I went to the Wikipedia page. It explains quite well what it is. And it's actually I realize it's a kind of cellular automation game, automaton game.
Right. I mean, it wouldn't be very like the name game is probably a bit of a misnomer, just because for a given setup it is entirely deterministic. So as soon as you stop drawing on the
There are
board
no
and you hit
choices.
play, right? So not much of a game, and also there is no win condition.
Yeah,
But
sure.
I think that it's extremely poignant as an example of how very minimal rules can produce super complex behavior. And
It's a
if you
sort
can
of
see in
chaotic
the
system.
right, right, and if you can see in the top right corner, uh, this is something that's called a glider gun. So it constantly generates this stream of those little guys traveling the board forever.
Really here because our faces were covering.
Right, right. And if anyone doesn't know, the rules are very simple. So if a black cell is living and a white cell is dead, and to animate, I guess, that cell, it needs to have exactly 3 living neighbors. And then a living cell needs either 2 or 3 living neighbors to survive. And,
Okay.
just stage by stage, you update the board according to the neighborhood from the previous stage. And that's it. And you can create all sorts of crazy stuff. The game is actually Turing complete, which is a fancy way of saying that you can like build a working computer inside the game of life. And you can create like clusters of living cells that will be interpreted as input, and it will
That's pretty
solve like
cool.
actual math problems and stuff. So that's cool. And probably you don't want your board games to be able to run Doom. So like Turing completeness is not your top concern.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said,
I
I
think
think
it
that
was a big
this
inspiration.
this example of emergence and of extremely complex consequences of your simple rules
Mm-hmm.
is something that many designers rightly strive to.
I think
Uh,
since they call it the game of life, he has been misunderstood in a way, uh, as it was an actual game, or maybe since we consider life a game in a way.
in a way. Oh, by the way, John Conway, the creator of the Game of Life, was also a fairly good abstract designer. He
Oh,
created the game Football, PHUTBALL, so like Philosopher's Football.
okay.
And in general, like he was a really profound mathematician, but he also did like a lot of very funny recreational math stuff. And sadly, he passed away from COVID. I
Oh,
think
okay.
2 years ago now. So yeah, uh, he was actually a huge source of inspiration for me to go into recreational math and to go into board games. So while I never got to interact with him in any capacity, I just wanted to
Hmm.
thank him and yeah, rest in peace, John.
Are you a mathematician? I don't wanna jump to another topic, but
Right.
what's your
Well,
background if you wanna talk about it?
yeah. So uh, I've seen that in the previous podcast, Alec made a claim that I am a mathematician, and it is slightly inaccurate in that I have studied mathematics for 2 years,
Okay.
and I've been, for a second year student, I've been reasonably active scientifically in that I've been going to some conferences and presenting some ideas, but I haven't actually published any papers, just some post-conference stuff. And then when the pandemic hit, I kind of reevaluated my life choices, and I dropped out of university, and I am now studying once again, but I am studying actually pedagogy, which is like education theory.
Okay.
So not a mathematician, but like an enjoyer and a friend of mathematics. Maybe someday when I have more time on my hands, I will kind of become semi-active in research because I still have some contact with the community and I do have some curious ideas, but
Well, also
for the moment,
using
sadly, my mind.
math in the educational field, I think it's a pretty interesting area.
Oh yeah, actually, like the education of mathematics, the teaching of mathematics is like a very hard and controversial topic. Just because it's very hard to do right, and then you get some numbers that are frankly terrifying.
Mm.
So stuff like maybe 70% of adult people like don't really understand the concept of fractions.
Yeah,
And then even when I was in the first year of university, I saw that on like a syntactic but also philosophical level, a lot of my colleagues had understanding with the equals sign, like grasp that A equals B means that A and B are interchangeable in all contexts. It was kind of so like
okay. This is a bit
Fortunately,
more philosophical.
I am still quite young. Like I look old, but I'm actually only 23. So I have some time to figure out what's my ultimate
Yeah,
career
sure.
path. But yeah, teaching math is hard.
I almost 30 and I decided myself recently to change a bit my my life, so it's never too late.
Right, thank you.
And well, yeah, thanks for sharing. Um, yeah, actually, using games to teach mathematics or other subjects, I think is a very fascinating field. Um, it's something I would like to get more into it as well.
Oh,
Do
I
you?
haven't tried it actually, but it does sound fascinating. Are you aware of any curious, like interesting games that do it well?
Well, not specific games, but I think all sort of games that we talk, even the games we talk about today, um, have a mathematical basis, right?
Right, obviously.
The way you decide how big the board needs to be, and the growing protocol for Symple,
Right.
for example,
And Tumbleweed
or
obviously will make you extremely good at counting to six. So there's that.
oh yeah. But so every kind of game has their own. I mean, of course, some games are more suitable. Like I don't know, in Mancala kind of games. Uh, I think you can use like explain strategy in terms of divisions, and like it's clearly a mathematical tool to
Oh yeah,
play.
Mancalas are. Oh
um,
yeah. Oh,
so
by the way, I'm sorry, but you kind of provoked me.
what for?
Yeah, since you said the word Mancala,
Uh-huh.
I've been kind of waiting for it. I just wanted to shout out Christian Freeling again
Okay.
because typically Mancalas are okay. So first of all, I think that people who designed Mancalas, and if I'm not mistaken, Mancalas are primarily African games, really had a
Originally,
different. Right.
historically, I think.
Sorry?
Historically, they
Right, historically, obviously
mostly
they
do.
are now international, but like they originate, I believe, in Africa, and people who created them had a very different mindset about board games. Because like people in the West treat board games very much as a sport and as a competition,
Hmm.
and I guess
I think
for the
it
people who created Mancalas, it was maybe
more
less important
socializing.
the social aspect, yeah. Which, by the way, I think that it's a really lovely mindset to have, and I actually created this one game called Lilac or Lelag, whatever, which is very minimalistic and very simple, but it's a great pastime and a great like social occasion. And I hate to play it over the computer, but I love to play it with actual people whenever I meet them.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, I think that standard Mancalas, for that reason that they weren't really designed for this competitive purpose. Uh, they are clearly deep enough. They are, I would say, somewhat comparable to Draughts in
Mm.
depth, most of them.
It
But
depends. Some of them are even more complicated, I think.
oh yeah,
Ba
yeah. Obviously, it
Bao
depends.
is absurdly complicated.
Yeah, of course. I'm just, speaking in the abstract, no pun
Yeah.
intended. But like a lot of Western players that I've met complain that they have very low replayability and they feel kind of dull to them.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, I really like Kala. I'm an avid Kala player, but there is something to it, I guess. And what Christian has done is he created a game called Glass Beats Game,
Okay.
in which he has done something that has never been done before, as far as Mancalas go,
Okay.
to the best of my knowledge. So the one thing is that there is more than one type of stone,
Different colors.
and the other thing is that yeah, different colors, and they have different strategic functions. And the other thing is that the stones, when you're playing a group of stones from the single pit, they can be sewn from any, like in any order you want. So you can sew, for instance, first black, then red, or first red, then black.
Okay, so in
And
this, okay, and they do
other than
different
that, the
things.
game is, it's precisely as big and as complex as it needs to be. Like Christian doesn't like to overdo his games, and basically he gets one good idea and then tries to find like a minimal working skeleton for it. And Glassbeat's game is kind of this. But what this does, I think, is it kind of westernizes Mancala, because now it gives you, more colorful stuff on the board. So more
Literally.
things to play around and get right,
More
literally, and to
flavor.
get like visually excited about. And also it shoots the because typically if Mancalas are deep, then they have some obscenely large setup, a lot of pieces,
Yeah.
a lot of holes, and this one here has only 20 pieces, only 10 holes, which is one of the most minimalistic, non-trivial Mancalas out there. But thanks to there being a lot of pieces and you being able to play them in various orders, the branching factor is through the roof, and it's uncharacteristically big for a Mancala.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
I am literally the only one person that cares in the entire world, I think, as much for Glassbeat's game. There are actually some players, to the best of my knowledge, but like I'm the one fanatic. But yeah, I genuinely think
Well,
that
every
this
game
represents.
needs people like that.
Oh
Otherwise,
yeah,
they
oh
wouldn't
yeah,
they
oh
wouldn't
yeah.
become popular.
But
You
I
probably
actually
need
think,
more than one.
unfortunately, I wish if I ever meet a second one, I will probably just propose straight up because yeah. But anyway, I do really think that this game represents kind of a paradigm shift for Mancalas. And I would appreciate anyone who complains for the lack of, maybe replayability in Mancalas to give to give Glassbeat game a
Last one.
shot. And yeah, actually, I tried to create like some Mancalas in this genre. There is like a game that will probably be implemented in AI soon called Rainbow Chase. It's a Mancala by me. Uh, yeah, and
I was noticing
kind of
that.
this entire thing goes into nowhere because just I'm stupidly excited about this one game that few other people play. But actually, I would like to encourage my fellow designers to kind of think about stuff that maybe doesn't particularly work in games, and then think about those little tweaks that help address it. This is something that Christian is uniquely good at. I mean, his original designs are cool, but he's at his best when he's improving on someone else's ideas. And the results, I think, can be beautiful. Because, obviously, there is not such a thing as the best board game. But there can be such a thing as a better board game, and we should, I guess, strive for that.
Definitely. Always better. What else? What else? Well, I think we've done like an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, something like that. Minus the disconnection, but
Yeah. Just maybe a final question. You play other games that are not abstract. Um, you enjoy playing other games that are not abstract.
well, so that there is this one game of mine called Lilac, which is not an abstract, but I really like to play. Other than that, I'm not really much of a player, I guess. Not really a gamer type. But
Okay.
every once in a while, I get really hooked on something stupid, and then I play to exhaustion. So, like, there is this mobile game called Clash Royale,
Yeah, I heard about it.
and I used to be like some high arena elite player for a while, and actually I was in a scout camp once, and when playing, I drowned my phone in the toilet. Right.
While playing.
Right, well, yeah. So I was kind of standing up, and it slipped from my hand, and then, like, it was, this kind of big open military style latrine, and
Okay.
yeah, terrible tragedy. But
You're
yeah,
not an elite player anymore then after that
not
episode.
anymore. I was never able to climb to the same, maybe because of the trauma. Yeah, but anyway, I don't really play all that much. Mostly abstracts, but I'm not an elitist. Uh, like if there is a game that I find stimulating on some level, then
You play it.
I will probably waste a few months on it.
But yeah, but I guess there are like the world is split in designers and gamers in a way.
Right.
You can do a bit of both, but you probably enjoy more one of the two, or I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I actually don't consider myself a very active designer. Like, every once in a while I'll get an idea, but probably Tumbleweed has given me all that I could ask for in terms of design success.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, but you
so
never know when you receive a new idea on
right,
your
right.
mind.
Obviously, when it comes, it comes. But I'm no longer, I guess, that hungry for inventions that I was.
Okay.
Also,
Um,
it's that the lockdown has ended, and now I have some, stuff to do, people to see. Because, like, I had this weird phase in my life where actually on I thought we disappeared for a while, but okay, no, we're
you
back.
froze for a second, but you're fine now.
Okay, yeah. So the thing with me is that I'm actually on the autism spectrum, and uh, 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 like most designers, by the way, like
Players
I
as
have
well.
sometimes the problem with maybe hyperfixation. So basically, at the beginning of the pandemic, I kind of had this 2 or 3 months phase where I dropped out of university, and I barely went out, and which was very responsible by the at the time,
Yeah.
of course. And I barely did anything, barely showered, I guess, and like board games became a full time hobby, and it was a really dark phase in my life, to
Was a
be honest.
hard
Sorry.
was a hard period for many people, I think, and
Oh
it
yeah,
made
yeah.
everything worse.
And
Uh,
it was a terrible time in my life, honestly, but like a lot of good games came out of it. So I guess
some
there's some
light in the
truth to,
dark.
right. There's, I guess, some truth to tortured soul being better artists. uh, so fortunately I don't ever feel that time, or like that level of devotion to anything again. Yeah, but
Okay, okay,
we'll see where the future takes me.
okay. Well, I think I need to thank you for this amazing chat. Good luck for everything,
Thank you very much.
for your games and for your future, for your career. We hope to see more games coming out, and well, we'll keep in touch, and we'll keep playing Tumbleweed games as we've done in the past few days.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for the great talk, and of course, thanks to everyone in the chat for listening.
Cool. Thanks everyone. The next episode, I'm not sure who's gonna come, who is still up in the air. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna upload it on YouTube at some point, probably tomorrow. Thank you again, and bye everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.